Okay, so the film Black Panther is going international. It's breaking records everywhere. We saw opening weekend in China, did $63 million opening weekend in China. We saw its highest, the most tweeted film in history, 35 million tweets. We saw it's the first film to be shown in Saudi Arabia in 35 years. Okay. Now, to understand the film, you have to understand some history about the Black Panther character. All right. So the Black Panther character was introduced July 1966 in issue 52, volume 1, issue 52 of the Fantastic Four. Okay. And he was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Okay, for Marvel Comics. So this was the first time we saw an African superhero. And basically, even at this time, they really didn't have African American superheroes. They had some sidekicks, like one was with Sergeant Fury and his Howling Soldiers or something like that. But this was the first time we saw really a superhero of African descent. Okay, he is the king of Wakanda, a fictitious African nation. All right. That is, now the location of Wakanda has changed throughout the years, but it's somewhere in East Africa around the Kenya, Tanzania area. In the movie, they had it geographically near Rwanda, okay? But in this comic book, he fights against the Fantastic Four and defeats the Fantastic Four, okay? In their own comic book. So we had never seen anything like this. And what happened was, he was fighting the Fantastic Four as a test, because his father, who was he's the prince, but his father, who was the king of Wakanda, T'Chaka, had been killed, and he was killed by Ulysses Claw, who's the arch enemy. You saw Ulysses Claw depicted in the movie, who had the arm cannon made from vibranium, and he's fighting the Fantastic Four as a test to determine if he is ready to go after Ulysses Claw. All right, so. At the end, so it's a two-part story, issue 52 and issue 53. So at the end of issue 52, he says, "I am, as you see me, hereditary chieftain of the Wakandas, and perhaps the richest man in all the world. But it was not always so. My tale is one of tragedy and deadly revenge." Okay, so if we look at a timeline, right? So this is July 1966. This is the year after Malcolm X is assassinated. So Malcolm X is assassinated February 21st, 1965. This is the year after the Voting Rights Act was signed into law. The Voting Rights Act signed into law August 2nd, August of 1965. 2 years after the Civil Rights Act signed into law was July 1964. 3 years after Medgar Evers was assassinated. Okay, we had never seen anything like this, where you have in the comic book, you got an African chieftain of an African nation who is probably the richest man in the world, okay? But that's Mansa Musa, okay? Who was the richest man in the world, and that's not just me saying this, but this is an article from history.com, which is the official website of the History Channel. And they have an article that came out in March of 2018, and it says, in the article, it says, in the vast fictional universe of Marvel Comics, T'Challa, better known as Black Panther, is not only king of Wakanda, he's also the richest superhero of them all. And although today's fight for the title of wealthiest person alive involves a tug-of-war between billionaire CEOs, the wealthiest person in history, Mansa Musa, has more in common with Marvel's first black superhero. Okay? So history and culture is tied into this film. It's all throughout this film. So the article goes on to say, Mansa Musa became ruler of the Mali Empire in 1312 AD, taking the throne after his predecessor, Abubakar II, for whom he had served as deputy, went missing on a voyage he took by sea to find the edge of the Atlantic Ocean. Mansa Musa's rule came at a time when now this is extremely important. Mansa Musa's rule came at a time when European nations were struggling due to raging civil wars and a lack of resources, because Europe is still in the Dark Ages. This is in the 14th century. Europe doesn't start coming out of the Dark Ages to the end of the 15th century, okay? They're still in the Dark Ages, and it's the Moors who go into Europe and save Europe. When they go into 711 AD, about 85–90% of Europeans are illiterate. you have these European nations warring against each other, and they're organizing themselves to expel the Moors, okay? And this is going to set up Columbus setting sail on his first of 4 voyages, August 3rd, 1492. You've heard me talk about this before. Now, during that period, the Mali Empire flourished thanks to ample natural resources like gold and salt, okay? So check out this article from History.com. History.com is the official website of the History Channel. March 19, 2018, this 14th century African emperor remains the richest person in history, okay? He just so happened to be an African man, all right? Now, when we look at the word Wakanda, because see, a lot of people, first of all, let me just back up for a minute. So I've seen the film twice, but I've also read over 100 articles dealing with the film. I also went and researched the history of the comic book and of the character Black Panther. And then in my research, this is one of the books that I read. This is from Marvel, Black Panther, the Ultimate God, which deals with the last 52 years of the Black Panther character and other characters, the comic book, things like this, right? So a lot of people say, well, it's a fictitious movie, okay? So how are you going to learn anything from a fictitious movie? Or a fictitious movie is not going to have an impact on us. Well, if we look at the TV show A Different World, how many people remember A Different World? Right? We used to watch it every Thursday night, NBC, right? Now, A Different World took place at a fictitious college. Hillman does not exist. I've seen some Hillman t-shirts, but I ain't never seen a graduate of Hillman College, okay? Hillman is fictitious college, but the period of time that A Different World was on the air, enrollment at historically black colleges and universities tripled. It tripled because we got to see ourselves each week studying, doing all different types of things, growing. I joined the Pan-African Student Union when I was at Wayne State University because I saw them talking about Pan-Africanism and the Pan-African Student Union on A Different World. Because there was an episode where Julian was like an exchange student or something, and they have a Pan-African student meeting dealing with the anti-apartheid movement. So because I saw it there, it didn't seem so foreign to me. It didn't seem like spookism. It didn't seem like, oh, these brothers trying to overthrow the government, they're going to get all us killed, all this stuff. No, it seemed like something, okay, let me go see this. So every Wednesday at Wayne State University, they used to have student organization day, and different organizations would set up a table in the student center. So every Wednesday, Abiomi Ezekwe, who was the president of the Pan-African Student Union, was set up. So I started going over talking to him. And I started sitting with him and talking to him for hours. And that's how I joined the Pan-African Student Union. Because I saw it on A Different World and it seemed like something possible. Okay? So, and then if you look at the movie, the first movie, A Birth of a Nation, that came out February 8, 1915, right? Directed by D.W. Griffith. That was a fictitious movie. But that movie called Race Riots in the Streets. It caused race riots in different cities across the country. Not only did it cause race riots in the streets, but when you research it, it rejuvenated the Ku Klux Klan. How many people knew that? Yeah. Because the Ku Klux Klan was founded December 21st, 1865 in Pulaski, Tennessee. Okay, Christmas Eve. So this is later in the same month that the 13th Amendment was ratified, December 6, 1865. It was adopted December 18, 1865. The South was devastated. The South was pissed off because they lost their 4 million enslaved Africans, which their wealth was tied to. And then December 24th, 1865, you had this terrorist organization, the Ku Klux Klan, founded. By 1915, 50 years later, a lot of these former Confederate generals had died out. When you studied the Ku Klux Klan, they had pretty much died out by then. But what happened was that in the film, the Ku Klux Klan were the heroes. Because how many people have seen the original Birth of a Nation? Okay, it's on YouTube. Watch it. Now it's long, it's 3 hours. It's a silent movie. It may be a little challenging. It's a silent movie. But it takes place, if you study it and read about it, which I have, it takes place during slavery, the Civil War, and Reconstruction. And what it does is, number one, this is one of the movies that helped to propagate the myth of the happy slave. There were probably 3 main movies that did this. In 1912, you had one. I'm giving you some background history, because I hear people saying a whole lot of stuff about the film, and they're totally ignorant. 1, on history, 2, on the history of the Black Panther comic book, 3, on how all this ties to the film. Because imagery is one of the most important things What you read, see, and hear affects the way you think, feel, act, and behave. I understand this because I've been studying media for 26 years. My degree is in business administration with a major in marketing from Wayne State University. I've been studying media for 26 years. Okay? So, you had probably about 3 films that were critical to promoting this myth of a happy slave, the content slave, the slave that did not fight back against slavery, that people are still talking about and lying about today. One was the film Uncle Tom's Cabin, which came out about 1912. And it's a black and white film. It's about 30 minutes. And it shows this servile, obedient, enslaved African named Uncle Tom. But if you actually understand the book Uncle Tom's Cabin, which came out in 1852, written by Harriet Beecher Stowe, the character of Uncle Tom is based upon a real-life man named Josiah Henson, who was a runaway slave who became an abolitionist on the Underground Railroad and a Methodist minister, because he and his family, they go up into Canada. They run away and go up into Canada. They run away from plantation in Maryland, and then he goes into Canada. He becomes an educator, a Methodist minister, and he works on the Underground Railroad. This is who the character of Uncle Tom and Uncle Tom's Cabin was based upon. He wrote his autobiography. Harriet Beecher Stowe read his autobiography and then writes Uncle Tom's Cabin. The character who we think was servile wasn't servile. The servile slave was Sambo. Yeah. In the book. Yeah. He was the one who followed around Simon Legree, the slave master, and told on the slaves and all this stuff. That was Sambo, not Uncle Tom. Yeah. So this whole thing is backwards because we don't read, we don't study. So you have Uncle Tom's Cabin, 1912. 1915, you have A Birth of a Nation. All the negative stereotypical images of African Americans you can see in the movie, the happy slaves, the pickaninnies, the coons, the toms, the mammies, they show all that. They show that it takes place on a plantation in Piedmont, South Carolina. And it shows the slaves performing and dancing and singing, entertaining the slave master and his family. And they talk about how they were all happy and they all got along and the slave master loved them. These were part of their family. Then the Civil War came and disrupted the South. This is the lie that they tell. Okay? So then, after the Civil War, you have a group of Negro Union soldiers and these carpetbaggers that come into this town in South Carolina, start oppressing the white people, pushing them around, things like this. And then the Ku Klux Klan is going to rise up to put down this rebellion and take back control, and it's called The Birth of a Nation. The Ku Klux Klan were the heroes. This is a fictitious film that rejuvenated the Ku Klux Klan, which had real consequences and repercussions. So the film was so popular that when there were newspaper ads promoting the film, the Ku Klux Klan would oftentimes take out recruiting ads next to the newspaper ad for the film Birth of a Nation. But this is a fictitious film. Then in 1939, right around 1939, you have Gone with the Wind, which is another movie that portrayed this image of this happy slave, Mammy and Butterfly McQueen and all this stuff. Okay? But this is really contrary to when you actually study the history of slavery and when you read the slave narratives. Okay, so when we look at the fictitious nation of Wakanda, what a lot of people don't know is that Wakanda is not a made-up word. Wakanda is a real word. Okay? So, Wakanda is in the Sioux Indian language, Native American language, Sioux Native American language. It's also in the Omaha Ponca language, and it's also a Bantu word in one of the Bantu languages. I'm still trying to find out which one, but I know it's related to Rwanda, Uganda, and Buganda. Okay? Now, let's look at this here. Native American legends. You see some different variations on how I spell. You may see W-A-K-O-N-D-A or W-A-K-A-N-D-A, Wakanda. All right? There is in Wisconsin, because I did a lot of research on this, there's a water park in Wisconsin called Wakanda, spelled W-A-K-A-N-D-A. I researched it and went to their website. And it didn't just open when this movie came out. Okay? There in Nebraska, there's a school called Wakanda. There's schools throughout the country, because this is a Native American word. Okay? There's schools called Wakanda as well. Alright? So tribal affiliation, Omaha, Ponca, Osage. Alright? Alternate spellings. You see different alternate spellings of it. Okay? But the word Wakanda in Native American languages means possesses secret powers. Possesses secret powers. Wakanda, it can also be a reference for God, or the creator as well. Wakanda is the great creator power of the Osage, Omaha, and Ponca tribes. Wakanda is an abstract, omnipresent creative force who is never personified in traditional Siouan legends, dealing with the Sioux Indians, and in fact did not even have a gender before the introduction of English with its gender-specific nouns. All right, so you can check this out, native-language.org. All right, because I did a lot of research on this. This is not something made up. This ties. See, a lot of times, even if it's fiction, it has its basis in reality. It ties to history. It ties to culture. And this is what this film does. Okay. All right. Now, we talk about it being a Native American language, in Native American languages, right? But if you understand history, how many people familiar with Dr. David Imhotep? Because we've had him at Nandy's Knowledge Cafe twice. Okay? He's a friend of mine. He wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. His book deals with the African presence in North, Central, and South America, North America, specifically the land we call the United States of America, going back at least 51,700 years before Native Americans come into existence. Before Native Americans come into existence. So when I see it's in the Bantu languages, and I know that African people existed before Native Americans, then I see the connection. I'm not surprised it's a Native American word because I know where it probably originally came from. So if you look at page, so this is his book. He has a new book that just came out, which is a revision called. It's all updated. It's called The First Americans Were Africans Revisited. So get with him, Nandy, because he published it himself. Nandy. Yeah, get with Dr. David Imhotep because his new book just came out and he published it himself. The First Americans Were Africans Revisited. He has about 200 additional pages, so you can get the first one, read that, so then when you get the second one, you'll be right on point, all right? But on page 14 of his book, he talks about a discovery in Allendale County, South Carolina, made by Dr. Albert Goodyear. Dr. Albert Goodyear is an archaeologist at the University of South Carolina. This is what they found in 2004. 14 years ago they made this discovery. They found artifacts, architecture, campsites, carvings, Egyptian writings, footprints in lava, genetic M174D haploid groups dealing with DNA and genetics, linguistics, paintings, skulls, skeletons, structures, and tools. They found 13 different disciplines fairly documented in African presence in Allendale County, South Carolina. These were the Khoisan. Khoisan had come from Southern Africa, have the oldest DNA on the planet, and they spoke in cliques. The click language is probably the oldest language that existed. They're the ancestors to the Ainu and the Twa. And the Khoisan go all around the world. This right here is an article from ScienceDaily.com. ScienceDaily.com. You don't have to take my word for this. I was just talking to Professor Kaba Kamene. I was talking to him on the phone. He told me, shout out to, he said, give my love to the Detroit family also, by the way. Okay, Professor. Y'all know Professor Kaba Kamene? Booker T. Coleman from Hidden Colors. The Black Friday documentaries. I'm in the Black Friday documentaries. We have the Black Friday documentaries over here dealing with economic empowerment. Okay, and I'm going to have them on my show tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the African History Network show on 9:10 a.m. on Superstation. And he said, you don't have to believe a word that I say. Go do your own research. This is what I say. Proper documentation is all conversation. You don't have to believe a word that I say. Go research this yourself, okay? So ScienceDaily.com has this article, New Evidence Puts Man in North America 50,000 years ago. This article came out 14 years ago. And when I travel and do presentations, nobody has read this article. Most people don't know about this discovery. Here's a synopsis of what the article says. This is not my summary of what the article says. This is what the scientific website is telling you that the article says. Radiocarbon tests of carbonized plant remains where artifacts were unearthed last May along the Savannah River in Allendale County by University of South Carolina archaeologist Dr. Albert Goodyear indicate that the sediments containing these artifacts are at least 50,000 years old, meaning that humans inhabited North America long before the last ice age. When you read Dr. David Imhotep's book and you look at the evidence, this is before Native Americans come into existence, okay? Because the people who we call Native Americans are the offspring of an intermixing of Africans who were here for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, and Asians who come here in 3000 BC. They intermix. They're offspring of who we call Native Americans, and they were usually a darker skinned people. They're not these light skinned, almost white looking Native Americans you see today. Okay? And what happens is when European settlers come here, a lot of these different mixtures, even the indigenous African groups, and a lot of these mixtures of Africans and Asians, they get reclassified as Native Americans. Okay? So if you don't know this history, then you don't know what happened to those populations. Now, of course, some are going to be killed, but you don't know what happens to these populations. All right? So, and when I talk, I've interviewed Dr. David Imhotep, I think 11 times now. And we had private conversations as well. And he said, you're never going to find remains of Native Americans that are older than Homo sapiens sapiens. Homo sapiens sapiens is what we are, modern man. Okay? He said the reason why is because they don't exist. Because they're the offspring of the intermixing of Africans and Asians. You're not going to find them older than the Homo sapiens sapiens. All right? Okay, so what is Bantu? Okay? Because the language that's spoken in the film, Black Panther, we still talking about Black Panther, this all relates to Black Panther, okay? The language that's spoken in the film is Isikosa. Okay, so you see the language between T'Chaka, the father, played by actor John Kanai, who is South African, and he speaks the Isikosa language. And T'Chaka, okay, even in the scene in Hong Kong in the casino, okay, when you see General Okoye, she speaks a word in the Isikosa language. So you'll see Kosa, but it's actually Isikosa. That's a Bantu language. So Bantu languages are a group of some 500 languages belonging to the Bantoid subgroup of the new Congo branch of the Niger-Congo language family. The Bantu languages are spoken in a very large area, including most of Africa from southern Cameroon, eastward to Kenya, and southward to the southernmost tip of the continent, which would include South Africa. Okay? 12 Bantu languages are spoken by more than 5 million people, including Rundi, Rwanda, Shona, Kosa or Isikosa, and Zulu or Amazulu, and Swahili, which is actually Kiswahili, which is spoken by 5 million people as a mother tongue, and some 30 million as a second language, is a Bantu lingua franca important in both commerce and literature. Okay? For more information, there's a number of sources you can look at. This one right here, you can go online and search for this, Britannica.com. They got information on the Bantu language group. This just give you some background information, okay? The Bantu language group. All right? So the language that they're speaking is not a made-up language. It connects you to African history and culture. All right? So this is the director of the film, Ryan Coogler. Ryan Coogler is 31 years old. He directed a film. This is only his 3rd film he directed. You understand this? This film has done $1.3 billion. It's already been announced that Black Panther 2 is going to be made. Okay? His first film was called Fruitvale Station, which was about the killing of Oscar Grant, the life and killing of Oscar Grant. That starred Michael B. Jordan, who played Eric Killmonger in this movie. His second movie was Creed, which was the 7th movie, I think it was, in the Rocky franchise. And it's about Michael B. Jordan, right, who played Apollo Creed's son in that movie, okay? And his 3rd movie co-starred Michael B. Jordan. This is Ryan Coogler's 3rd movie. Just a few years ago, Ryan Coogler was homeless living in his car. Wow. He's a 31-year-old director, and he's gold now. He's hot, okay? You know, Pastor Bullock was talking about hot and relevant. He's hot and relevant. Yes. He's lit. Yes. Okay? All right, so he's the director of the film. He co-wrote the script along with Joe Robert Cole, who are both 2 African-American men. These are the ones who wrote the script for this film. All right? So, just to give you just a little synopsis of the film. How many people have seen the film Black Panther? All right. Yes, so there's no spoiler alert. All right. Okay, so very quickly here. Now, so if you understand the Marvel comic universe films, usually one film is related to another film. That's right. Okay? Anytime you go see a Marvel movie, one, you need to have seen some of these other Marvel movies because they all tie together. So if you see Avengers 3 ties to Avengers 1, it ties to Captain America Civil War, it came out in 2016, it ties to Doctor Strange, it came out I think in 2016, because I just watched Doctor Strange on Netflix a couple nights ago. Okay, I hadn't seen the Doctor Strange movie, so it's on Netflix. I only get to watch Netflix once a month. I'm paying them every month, so I said, okay, they got Doctor Strange, I'm gonna watch this, all right? So, all these movies tie together. All right, so the film opens about a week after Captain America Civil War takes place. Because Captain America Civil War was the first movie to introduce the character of the Black Panther, played by Chadwick Boseman, who also played Thurgood Marshall, also played Jackie Robinson, and also played James Brown. Okay? So I think next time they're going to have him playing Elvis. Who knows? Okay. Thanks for watching a preview of this presentation entitled Black Panther Analysis, African Culture, History, and Afrofuturism by Michael Imhotep, host of the African History Network show and founder of the African History Network. This full 3-hour presentation is available on DVD and digital download at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Also, other presentations by Michael Imhotep are available there as well. And listen to podcasts of the African History Network show and read articles by Michael Imhotep at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Listen to the African History Network show Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 9:10 a.m. Superstation. And visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, for more information on how to listen to the show live. Remember, what you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you have been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.